facing the police every single day.
How you doing?
So let me ask you a quick question. We're doing a story on your professional educational qualifications.
How you doing? How you doing today, sir? How you doing? No comment.
Let me just...
Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marceno refusing to comment as Fox 4 works to get you answers about whether he should have been considered eligible initially for his law enforcement qualifications in Florida.
Well, even though the sheriff is an elected position, you'll remember Marceno was appointed by the former governor after the previous sheriff, Mike Scott, resigned. And now Marceno is running for the job with the primary election fast approaching. But our investigation, months in the making, reveals big questions about how Marceno got his first law enforcement job in Florida. Carmine Marceno started his law enforcement career in 1998. He worked for the Suffolk County Park System in the Long Island area of New York. A year later, he moved to Southwest Florida. To work in law enforcement, Marceno had two options: take almost 800 hours of police academy training required to work in Florida law enforcement, or go through what is called equivalency of training, or EOT. Something fishy here?
There may be something fishy, but definitely questions have to be asked.
Walter Zalisco is a former police chief from New Jersey who had to go through EOT himself in 2004 when he moved to Florida. I turned to the now private investigator and longtime law enforcement professional for his expertise. I did not disclose who I was referring to in my line of questioning because I wanted an unbiased opinion. Zalisco tells me it takes 2 steps to land a job with a Florida law enforcement agency.
Once they complete that equivalency training, they can then qualify to be employed by that agency, but they still have to take a written test. And they have 1 year to take that written test from the day that they get their equivalency training certificate.
Pamela C. is an attorney teaching criminal law at FGCU to students planning to go into law enforcement. She confirms that process is an absolute must for out-of-state officers to work in law enforcement in Florida.
So, you have to go through a class, and you have to take this and show it and get authorized. Once you're authorized, you take that exam.
Requirements can vary by state, but in Florida, in order to even qualify for the EOT, the state's top police agency, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, or FDLE, says officers must have worked at least 1 year full-time as a sworn officer.
You can't be part-time, you can't be an auxiliary or anything like that. 4
News Corner's Frank Cipolla got hold of Marceno's time cards from Suffolk County, New York.
These are Carmine Marceno's timesheets obtained by Fox 4. They're from the time he worked as an officer and park ranger for the Suffolk County Parks and Recreation Department. In New York, employees are required to work at least 37.5 hours to be considered full-time. These timesheets clearly show Marceno did not work full-time. In a roughly 16-month period he was there, from 1998 to 1999, he worked full-time just over 20 weeks. That's not even half a year. Many weeks he worked just 15 hours. Some weeks, half that. And there is something else. This New York Employee Retirement System document signed by Marceno. It clearly describes his job as part-time and seasonal, not a full-time position.
We wanted to give Marceno a chance to explain whether he had other experience to meet the FDLE requirement that he work full-time for a year in order to skip police academy training. Marceno declined multiple requests for an interview, so we sought him out at a Memorial Day parade. When Frank asked about his employment, Sheriff Marceno would only say no comment.
How you doing?
Good, let me ask you a quick question. We're doing a story on your professional educational qualifications.
How you doing? How you doing today, sir? How you doing? No comment.
Let me just ask.
After giving the sheriff space to shake a hand or two, Frank asked Marceno to at least confirm that he even worked in New York before the Memorial Day parade started.
2 questions, two quick questions. Were you a Suffolk County, full-time Suffolk County Parks and Recreation Ranger?
Sir, I'm here for the Veterans Parade. I'm sorry if you could step aside, but thank you.
Can you grant us an interview, a formal interview? Sir, would you grant? I understand that. Just we've asked him a quick question. We've asked for a request.
With Marceno in the back of the car waiting for the parade to start, Frank asked a question you might expect someone running for public office would be ready, even eager to answer.
So why won't you talk to us? Sir? Don't you think the people of Southwest Florida deserve some information on your educational professional qualifications for this job?
Sir?
And our Fox 4 investigation uncovered other unanswered questions as Sheriff Marceno's car drove off. With records showing Marceno did not meet the requirement of working full-time for a full year, how was he able to get a job? Our investigation found someone in authority vouched for him. Fox 4 found this document. It's a sworn statement, an affidavit signed in 1999 by Administrator John Brown at the Police Academy at St. Petersburg College. As you can see, question number 8 says, does the applicant have 1 year full-time of sworn experience? There was an X in the yes box, even though there was no written proof that he worked full-time. When I called the academy to see if they even had such proof, they said they don't keep records for more than 4 years at a time. When I asked to speak to Mr. Brown about why he signed the document, despite Marceno having only worked part-time in New York, I was told Brown retired 6 years ago and is traveling and unable to be reached. Another discrepancy. When Marceno first applied and got hired at the Naples Police Department in 1999, it was under one big condition. He had to pass the state officer certification exam within a year's time. FDLE records show Marceno failed in his first 2 attempts. Naples police would terminate Marceno about 9 months after hiring him. After being terminated from the Naples Police Department, Marceno went back up to Suffolk County, New York, and worked in a seasonal position back at Parks and Rec. However, FDLE records show Marceno did eventually pass the state certification exam in October of 2002. That means he does now meet that requirement to be a law enforcement officer, although there is no paperwork showing Marceno was ever eligible to take the test. That leads us to another gap. As Marceno started his employment with the Lee County Sheriff's Office, the department's application asks every candidate to mark full-time or part-time for all previous jobs. Marceno's application was filled out except for the section that asks if he was full-time or part-time in the New York job. Marceno was applying to an office then headed by Sheriff Mike Scott, who often made a point of publicly declaring he held his employees to the highest standards. I reached out to the former sheriff and brought up what appeared to be inconsistencies in Marceno's employment history. He declined to be recorded, only to say that he hired Marceno from the Collier County Sheriff's Office, where he was considered a fully certified deputy, and said that he thought he did a great job for LCSO and continues to do so. Zalisco, experienced in the hiring and firing of officers before, believes the people doing the hiring should have noticed the missing response in the application.
If I was reviewing that application, I would ask that individual, you need to check that off, or why aren't you checking it off? You know, what's the issue?
Is it a red flag?
Yeah.
Professor C says, while some of this seems technical, there's a bigger and more important picture here. And Florida law clearly states what qualifies and disqualifies a person from being a sworn officer in Florida.
We have a rule of law here. The law applies to everyone, including law enforcement officers. Otherwise, we lose respect for the law itself.
Congratulations, Sheriff Marceno, you're in charge.
Marceno is the sheriff. We watched as then-Governor Rick Scott swore him in with a promise to enforce the law.
So again, I want to thank Sheriff Scott for 1, his hard work here, 2, to groom somebody as good as Carmine.
Marceno told us just a few days earlier,
I'm humbled by the process and respect the process that I go through at this point with the governor, and I will absolutely be running in 2020.
Now with Marceno refusing to address even the basics of his professional background.
Sir, will you grant us an interview? Sir, will you grant us an interview? Sir?
The former law enforcement chief Zalisco says something like this could point to a leadership problem that would affect rank-and-file officers.
As a police supervisor somewhere, and the issue of your qualifications comes up, it would be in the best interest of the entire department and the agency to say, look, here are my qualifications, you know, there's no issue here, and clear it up. Because that could affect department morale.
I reached out to FDLE and the Florida Sheriff's Association asking for their perspective on the situation. Both declined interviews. The Florida Police Benevolent Association, the state's police union, didn't respond either. I've also reached out to Governor DeSantis' office requesting any correspondence between the governor and Marceno. I'm still waiting for those public documents. I also did reach out to Rick Scott's camp and waiting for the senator's response.
Jane, you pointed out several discrepancies here, a number of implications, and it's in a relatively short amount of time because I've seen you poring over this information for months. What's the big takeaway here for you as an investigative journalist based on all these documents you scoured, all these interviews you've conducted?
Well, Patrick, I mean, really, it boils down to the people of Southwest Florida deserving to know if the sheriff skipped requirements. Was he truly eligible to take the law enforcement test and therefore eligible to hold a law enforcement job? You saw that we asked many times for an interview. That offer still stands. If Sheriff Marceno wants to speak to us on camera about our investigation or provide a statement, we do welcome that opportunity. All right, so for those of you watching still might have some questions at home or on your mobile device, Fox 4 is committed to our transparency. You can see the documents we pulled from for our investigation, as well as the sources we talked to or tried talking to. We cited it all online. Just visit our website, fox4now.com.
Hey, Sheriff County, this is Sheriff County COPWATCH. I am using any video here with under fair use if you have criticism, reporting, teaching, etc. And please donate. I do not make money from YouTube, and there are different ways to donate in the video links. Thanks.